From Pacifica, this is Democracy Now!
Every single month or every single week or every single quarter, companies send in reports and they say, this is what I'm dumping into a river or this is what I'm dumping into a pond. And it shows that they're breaking the law. But in most cases, regulators either don't look at the report or even if they see the report, they're not doing anything to punish them.
Toxic waters. We'll speak with award-winning New York Times reporter Charles Duhigg about the worsening pollution of the nation's water supply. But first, a prominent University of Alaska marine scientist says he lost his federal funding because he's an outspoken critic of the oil industry. He'll join us from Anchorage. And finally, the CIA wants to read your blogs, monitor your tweets, and even check out your book reviews on Amazon. We'll speak with Wired magazine reporter Noah Shachtman. He broke the story. All that and more coming up. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. The Obama administration's preparing to order substantial pay cuts for executives at some of the nation's top bailed-out firms. White House pay czar Kenneth Feinberg has reportedly identified 25 executives at 5 major financial companies and 2 automakers who will be affected by the cuts. Overall, compensation will be reduced by about half on average, while salaries will see an average 90% cut. The companies are Citigroup, Bank of America, General Motors, Chrysler, GMAC, Chrysler Financial, and American International Group, AIG, which have collectively received around $250 billion in taxpayer assistance. In other financial news, the banking giant Wells Fargo's announced a record $3.2 billion third-quarter profit. The earnings are up 98% from a year ago. The announcement came as the financial firm Morgan Stanley announced third-quarter earnings of $757 million. On Capitol Hill, Democrats are moving forward with an effort to strip the insurance industry's exemption from federal antitrust laws. Democrats say the McCarran-Ferguson Act of 1945 has granted the insurance industry a captive market with no curbs on price fixing and other anti-competitive practices. On Wednesday, the House Judiciary Committee voted to repeal the exemption. House leaders say the measure could be included as part of overall legislation on health care reform. Meanwhile, in the Senate, Judiciary Committee Chair Patrick Leahy unveiled his version of the repeal.
We'll prohibit the most egregious anti-competitive conduct, price fixing, bid rigging, market allocation in the health and medical malpractice insurance industry. There's no place for those practices. They would be illegal if done by any other industry. And it's incredible that criminal conduct, which would land people in jail if they engage in other industries, is legal when health insurers do it.
Senator Leahy says he also plans to include the repeal measure as part of a final package on health care reform. The Obama administration's increasing warnings it could delay its planned withdrawal from Iraq. The U.S. has pledged to end combat operations by September 2010 and withdraw all troops by the end of 2011. But on Wednesday, Undersecretary of Defense for Policy Michelle Flournoy told a congressional hearing the U.S. could reevaluate its drawdown plans if Iraq delays national elections scheduled for January. Flournoy said the U.S. withdrawal plan is, quote, not rigid.
The drawdown plan is not rigid. It is conditions-based. It leaves room for reevaluation and adjustment in terms of the pace of the drawdown between now and the end of 2011. So if need be, we will re-examine things based on conditions on the ground.
In other congressional testimony, the oil tycoon T. Boone Pickens told lawmakers Wednesday the U.S. is, quote, entitled to Iraqi oil because of the human and financial toll of occupying Iraq. Addressing the Congressional Natural Gas Caucus, Pickens criticized Iraqi plans to open up oil fields to international bidding. Pickens said, quote, they're opening them up to other companies all over the world. We're entitled to it. We even lost 5,000 of our people, 65,000 injured, and $1.5 trillion. The Obama administration's warning Japan over talk of scaling back military ties to the United States. In the past week, Japan has announced it would pull out of a refueling mission in the Indian Ocean in support of U.S.-led military action in Afghanistan. Japan also wants to renegotiate a military agreement on relocating a U.S. Marine base inside its borders. The ruling Democratic Party of Japan was elected in August on a platform that included revisiting Japan's U.S. ties. On Wednesday, Defense Secretary Robert Gates held talks with Japanese officials in Tokyo, where he urged them to, quote, move on from talk of reevaluating existing military agreements. Gates' comments come as a State Department official told the Washington Post that Japan's becoming a major challenge for the U.S. in Asia, saying, quote, the hardest thing right now is not China, it's Japan. Iranian negotiators have accepted a draft agreement that would see most of its enriched uranium transferred abroad. Under the deal, Russia and France would help convert Iranian uranium to help fuel a research reactor used for medical purposes. The agreement still requires approval from Iranian leaders. On Wednesday, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton said the deal would herald an early test of Iran's nuclear ambitions.
The door is open to a better future for Iran, but the process of engagement cannot be open-ended. We are not prepared to talk just for the sake of talking. As President Obama noted after the October 1st meeting in Geneva, we appear to have made a constructive beginning, but that needs to be followed up by constructive actions.
In Somalia, at least 20 people have been killed in the capital, Mogadishu. Clashes erupted earlier today after militants fired on Somalia's airport as the Somali president was boarding a plane. The plane was able to take off undamaged. In Uruguay, support is growing to repeal amnesty for military officials over rights abuses committed under the 1973-85 military regime. This week, the Uruguayan Supreme Court ruled the law is constitutional. Uruguayans will vote on repealing it in a referendum as part of Sunday's national elections. On Tuesday, thousands of people marched in Montevideo in support of the repeal. This is the Uruguayan author and journalist Eduardo Galeano.
We believe that our country has shown in the first years of the Frente Amplio Party being in office that we are no longer that country that was paralyzed by fear.
Just a correction, in Uruguay, the support growing for repeal of the amnesty for military officials over rights abuses conducted during the military regime. Well, this week, the European Supreme Court ruled that the law is unconstitutional. Vice President Joe Biden was in Poland Wednesday to tout the Obama administration's plans to revamp the Bush administration's so-called missile defense system. Biden said the new system would be more effective and cover more ground.
Our new phased adaptive approach to missile defense is designed to meet a growing threat not only to the United States, but first and foremost to Europe. It's going to meet it with proven technology that will cover more of Europe, including Poland, and will do it more efficiently than the previous system could have or did. It strengthens missile defense for Europe, it strengthens Article 5, and it strengthens the alliance deterrence capability. Mr. Prime Minister, we have a lot to do. Simply put, our missile plan is better security for NATO and is better security for Poland, and ultimately better security for the United States of America.
Back in the United States, an Afghan national forcibly held in the United States to appear as a witness in a criminal trial has testified for the first time. Vilkak, who goes only by one name, was lured into the U.S. in August 2008 under the pretense of attending a celebration of Afghan businesses, but it turned out to be a ruse by U.S. prosecutors to use him as a witness in a federal bribery case. Vilkak was initially jailed for 3 weeks and has spent the ensuing period living in a Chicago area motel against his will. He's been held along with 2 other Afghans under the Material Witness Statute, which allows for the detention of witnesses who pose a flight risk. Testifying on Wednesday, Zulhaq said, quote, "I didn't ask to be here. If it was up to me, I would return to my country." Democratic Congressmember Alan Grayson of Florida has established a new website honoring those who've lost their lives because they were uninsured. Congressman Grayson says he founded namesofthedead.com after a recent Harvard University study found 44,000 people die every year because they lack health insurance. Grayson announced the website Wednesday on the House floor.
They themselves can no longer speak, but their families, the ones who love them, they can speak. And so I've established a website called Names of the